Welcome to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, the home for financial advice in a language you can understand. Created by Marc Freedman of Freedman Financial, he and his team of certified financial planner professionals will discuss timely topics that help individuals and families make smart financial decisions. And now, get ready for this week's edition of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial.
Welcome back to another edition of Dollars and Cents, our weekly podcast where we provide you with financial advice in a language you can understand. So today I am going to be hosting with my co-host Christian Karcher, and I'm Marion Gilman. So we have some really interesting topics today. How are you doing, Christian?
I'm doing well. How are you this morning, Marion?
Very good. So why don't you introduce the topic we have for today, because we have a very interesting topic.
Absolutely.
And this is a question that you received,
yes,
correct?
and it comes up a lot with our clients who are in retirement.
Yep.
And they've spent their whole lives being financially responsible.
Yeah.
And, you know, all those credit score ads on TV have certainly brought this to people's minds.
Well, you know what? I also noticed that some of my credit cards, when you go on to the website, sometimes it will come up with a credit score, or they'll send me a note saying your credit score has changed.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my God, what happened, right?
Yes, people, they have definitely put it in front of people. And so for a lot of years, people who are in retirement now had to focus on their credit score to make sure that they could get mortgages or good rates on their auto loans, making sure to qualify for credit cards, those types of things.
So the credit score is important for that.
Yeah, as you are building your wealth. But a lot of times we find people in retirement they still obsess over their credit scores, or they're still concerned about them. And they have absolutely no interest or no need to take additional credit out at any point in the near future. And so in a way, the credit score, while it's a good measure of your ability to continue to pay your bills, it really has almost no impact on your financial plan as you age into retirement.
Right. Because think about it. I mean, you have spent years building up wealth and saving that wealth, such that at some point along the way, and this is for most retirees, at some point along the way, you're going to be able to stop working, stop building wealth, and start spending your wealth. And, you know, for anybody who has worked in a corporation and has built up 401k assets, or you've built up assets in some investment account or at the bank, for the most part, once you retire, anything that you are spending on is going to come out of your investment accounts. Now, it could be a little bit different for somebody who has a large pension, so they're dependent upon a pension as opposed to investment account for their spending. But once you have an investment account, even if you're making monthly payments, it's coming out of the investment account. So it usually doesn't make sense to take a loan, right?
It really doesn't. And the other thing that I always find interesting is people will say, you know, if you're in retirement, you've built up, you've continued to pay your bills, and you're not delinquent on any credit things in your history, realistically, you're going to have a very good credit score. And so people will say, you know, my credit score went from 840 to 810, and should I be worried about this? And realistically, even if you were going to take out any debt, oftentimes these lenders are lumping anything 750 and above into the excellent prime category, and there's really no difference between a 10-point swing. It's just a matter of how it gets calculated.
Right.
So with that being said, I was thinking, you know, having this big credit score on your credit card statement or ads about it is what's bringing attention to this and why people are concerned about it. So I thought it might be kind of fun to say, okay, what other elements would we put on a financial health score, per se, that people should be spending their time thinking about and monitoring more so than even their credit score in retirement.
When they're in retirement. So again, you know, credit scores could be important along the way, but retirement, probably not so much.
But in retirement, there's another kind of set of questions and a set of factors that you don't get a credit score for, but you might want to keep an eye out for.
And so what's your prime factor in retirement?
I
What
think
is it?
the number one thing that should be most impactful on such a score would be having cash in the bank in an emergency fund.
But cash at the bank doesn't pay any interest, Christian.
That-
I mean, you know, my checking account, it's like 0% interest.
That's right, and that is okay.
It is.
It is, because it is liquid money that is there for you in case there is some sort of emergency.
Yeah.
And the last thing we want our clients to do is to get so used to, okay, the markets have been doing well and haven't really pulled back recently.
Right.
And relying on investments to be that emergency fund. Because we know this from time and time again.
Right.
When those emergencies hit, very often correlates with when there is also a pullback in the market. And we don't want to be relying on assets that are up and down every day to meet those expenses, those big emergencies, those big expenses that come up.
And, you know, because we take a holistic view of your finances, when anyone comes into our office and is a new client, we make sure that there is sufficient money at the bank to serve as an emergency fund. And we typically say you want at least 3 to 6 months living expenses in an emergency fund, meaning highly liquid at the bank, pays 0%, it doesn't matter. You can get that money right away if you need it, which is an emergency fund. The problem is, over time, sometimes those emergency fund accounts or those emergency funds get depleted over the years because the clients use them. And we don't always monitor what is in a bank account. We can't monitor that.
Right.
So, you know, that sometimes we don't know that, and clients are depending on the money they have with us, and that's tough if the market is down.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why many of our clients know when they come in for a review, about a week before, you'll probably get a letter in the mail from us here in the office with a net worth statement to say, this is where we thought you were the last time we talked.
Right.
And we'll say, are there any updates? And one of those updates that we make, and sometimes people call and say, is this silly for me to be updating this because it's only moved a couple $1,000s? But one of those things is making sure, okay, how much money do you have in the bank?
Right.
Because if that number starts to get too low, what we'll say is, okay, well, we want to make sure that we beef this back up. So now we're going to take a look at how do we get that back to that 3 to 6 months, or sometimes people we know are going on a big vacation later in the year.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that that cash is available and ready for you,
Right.
And not necessarily invested in the short term.
Yeah. So very good advice. Make sure you have a great emergency fund. So what are some of the other things that we want to be sure that we would be part of this retiree financial health score rather than a credit score? What else do we want to monitor there?
So one of the other things I would want to monitor is what I call the kind of the what ifs.
The what ifs. Because remember, although you might think you're going to have this, you have everything planned out, you know what you're going to spend, and everything is good to go, and we are on a path. Guess what? Life happens, right?
Life absolutely happens. And sometimes death happens.
Well,
so
that too.
Having your estate planning documents written out, and not just written out and having them, but having them implemented. That means if you have a trust, having assets in the name of the trust. That means making sure the beneficiary designations, the beneficiaries on your retirement accounts, are exactly who you want them to be.
So you should know that if an account has no named beneficiary on it, it's not a joint account and it's not a trust account, that account, if it's only in your name with no beneficiary, it would have to go through probate before your heirs would get it. And that's never a good thing.
Yeah, that is definitely minus points on the
scale.
On the score. Probatable assets are going minus 10 points.
That's right. So we try to look at these things. But you know, if you're not working with a financial advisor, or if you're wondering in between meetings with us, what do? You want to make sure this is in order.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that would be one of the big things I would put on that score. I'm not really sure how we're going to put numbers to it all, but
Yeah.
that would be up there.
Okay. Well, I would want to add to that. You also want to monitor what you're actually taking out of your accounts every year.
Yes.
Because you always have a plan in place, and as we just said, life happens. So we monitor what people are taking out of their accounts, and we can tell if they are taking too much money or if they're taking it from the wrong sources where taxes are going to be an issue. So we keep track of that and we understand that. Whereas sometimes you don't pay attention, you need money, you just take it and, on an ongoing basis rather than setting up a monthly income stream. And those accounts can deplete pretty quickly or more rapidly than you ever expected when you first started your retirement journey.
Absolutely. And what we often see is someone might start off a monthly and say, okay, I'm taking $5,000 a month from my accounts.
Right.
And that might be a good number for the amount of money that they have. And we say, okay, that's great. And then, like you said, life happens. A few things come up, they take additional money. And all of a sudden, after a year, we notice that they've taken, say, an additional $25,000. Well, that's, if you look at a percentage, that's 50% more than we had originally thought.
That's right.
And so
that's not insignificant.
That's not insignificant.
Right.
And sometimes you've got the assets to support that higher spending, and we've told a lot of our clients, you can spend that much, and it's more an effort to get them to spend that much. But for some people, it's, hold on, we need to take the brakes and say, how much are you actually spending? And because those one-time distributions, you don't really think about them.
That's right. And you want to remember that when you were working, you were living within an income, a monthly income. That's how you arranged your budget. That's how you did your spending. If you had large expenses coming up, you probably saved towards those large expenses each year. Or let's say you wanted to travel, so you save a little bit every month. And that was all you had. I mean, you didn't have other money. So now you might have these accounts that are worth a significant amount. You might not, and you might get in the habit of saying, well, I have all this money over here. I'm going to take some of that to use for this, an unexpected repair on my car or a roof or this or that. And that can start to derail your financial plan pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else you want to tell people about what they might want to pay attention to?
I had one more for my credits,
and
it's how close you get to your annual tax bill at the end of the year.
There you go.
In retirement, it can be very difficult to estimate where you should withhold things from. A lot of people will set up their pensions and not withhold anything, and then Social Security comes along and they don't withhold anything there, and now you're only withholding from, or you may be paying quarterly estimates. All of these pieces are juggled. It's a lot more difficult than when you're working a job and you just have it withheld. Sure. So making sure you're taking a look and saying, okay, last year, did I pay close to what I owed, or did I owe a bunch in April? Or maybe even a penalty if you didn't pay nearly enough in. Right. And how do you make adjustments? Where do you make adjustments? That would be another piece of that score that's important to take a look at and get it as close as possible. Things change year to year. But limiting the potential for penalties for underpayment of taxes, and making sure you're not giving the government an interest-free loan for the entire year by paying too much.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people treat that as a savings account sometimes where they pay in more, but that's not a good thing either, because all of a sudden, because it actually impacts your cash flow, and it can impact it negatively over the course of the year. So great advice. And if now's the time for you to get serious about your money and you want to get a better handle on where you're at, particularly if you're in retirement and living off a fixed amount of money, please give us a call, 978-531-8108. That's 978-531-8108. Or you can visit us on the web at freedmanfinancial.com. That's Freedman.
2 E's and a D.
Financial.com. And if you scroll down on any page, you can sign up for our weekly newsletter. It comes out at 10:30 every Friday morning. Again, providing financial advice in a language you can understand. So sign up for that, get on the email list, or give us a call if now's the time for you to take your finances seriously. But not about credit scores if you're in retirement. Don't worry about that. Have a great week, everyone, and thanks for listening.
See you soon.
During today's episode of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, your host may have discussed specific financial planning and investment ideas that are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Please remember that investing involves risk and may include loss of principal. Always consult a certified financial planner professional, qualified attorney, or tax advisor prior to investing to determine what is appropriate for you. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.